UFC Fight Night Aspinall versus Tybura is this weekend. I'm going to give you a full card prediction and breakdown start to finish. I believe there is 15 fights on this card, so it is going to be a little bit of a longer one. I'm going to try and get through it as fast as I can. Obviously, I'm not going to rush through it, but I'm going to give you my full card prediction and breakdowns. Here, starting with the fight of Jafel Filho versus Daniel Barez. I think I am going to go with Jafel Filho, and here's why. For Barez, he was on the Contender Series, lost to Carlos Hernandez by split decision, and then ended up fighting 4 opponents after that, all of them 9 loss, 10-9, 7-9, 6-9, 14-12, and he won those by KO, won those by finish, won one of them by submission. So he had some really good power on the feet, is able to walk some of these guys down. But Jafel Filho, just comparing what these guys have done, won on the Contender Series by KO, and then ended up making a little bit of a tougher matchup for Makhachev. On the ground, Makhachev did have some good success at least, but he did actually mess up Makhachev's knee pretty badly, to the point where Makhachev, I think, is still having a little bit of problems with it. But I think he is scheduled with what's his name, Tim Elliott, right now. So we'll see what Makhachev looks like. But he did have a moment in there. He didn't look too bad on the feet. I am a little worried on the feet against Daniel Barez for Jafel Filho. I think if Jafel Filho gets in for a takedown, transitions really well. He's really good on the ground in the submission game. I think he can end up submitting Daniel Barez in this one. Maybe Daniel Barez probably makes it a little bit tougher on the ground. Maybe this one does end up going to decision, but I am going to go with Jafel Filho. I can't rely on Barez, especially against a weaker competition. He did just run through him, so maybe that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I can't trust him against a guy like Jafel Filho, who's looked good on the Contender Series, 14-3. Had a couple good moments against Makhachev. I think he had a guillotine in. I think he had a knee bar in, so a really bad knee bar, like anybody would have tapped to that. So if Makhachev wasn't as tough as he was, Filho probably would have won that fight. So I am going to go with Filho, maybe by submission. A lot of Tapology is going with that, 86% for Filho. I'm going to go with him here. It is a closer and odds fight. I don't know exactly what it's at right now, but I don't mind Filho, especially in a parlay here. Maybe by a finish, he probably has some decent plus odds. So I am going to go with Filho in this one. Up the card, we have Bruna Brazil versus Shauna Bannon. Shauna Bannon is making her UFC debut. I believe she did come from Invicta. I think she was the champ there, if I'm remembering correctly. Last fight was 3 months ago. Bruna Brazil made her debut on the Dana White Contender Series, had a crazy KO, ended up losing her last fight against Denise Gomez, and Gomez just won against Yasmin Uruguay. So I guess necessarily that loss isn't necessarily horrible, but she did not look good in that fight at all. So I think I have to go with Shauna Bannon. I think she's a little bit more of an all-around fighter here. I think she should probably be looking for the wrestling, looking for some of the clinch work, mixing in some of the stuff, making it a little bit hard for Brazil. Brazil's pretty one-dimensional, I think. We haven't seen too much Bruna Brazil in other aspects. I mean, she just couldn't get out of her own way. She just left her chin out there, was just getting battered by Denise Gomez. So I am going to go Shauna Bannon. I think Shauna Bannon's pretty good on the feet. I think she is a kickboxer, a former kickboxer or something. I'm not too sure. I actually think, I'm pretty sure she is a former kickboxer, but I think she does do some good work on the feet here, but it is women's MMA. Expect the unexpected. She is the underdog, so I guess that's a good thing in terms of women's MMA, but 60-40 for Tapology here. I am going to go with Bannon. I don't trust Brazil. Brazil does have a decent chance in this matchup, but I'm assuming Bannon's just going to mix in her work on the ground and on the feet, so I'm going to go with Bannon, probably by decision. Up the card, we have Chris Duncan versus Yanal Ashmouz. I am going to go with Yanal Ashmouz in this one. I don't trust Chris Duncan. I don't trust his chin. I think Yanal Ashmouz has some really good power in his last fight against Sam Patterson. He had a really, really good KO. Ended up beating him up on the ground there. I think Sam Patterson was out for a little bit too. It was a pretty scary KO. So Yanal Ashmouz has some crazy power. Chris Duncan was on the Contender Series the first time against Vyacheslav Borshev, lost that one by KO. Almost got KO'd in his Contender Series matchup against Charlie Campbell. I actually put money on Campbell. I was so excited when he was about to KO him, and then he ended up just getting flatlined at the end. So I lost what was a $5 parlay into 100 or over 100. So it kind of pissed me off a little bit. But Omar Morales won that one by split decision. Looked decent in that matchup. I can't really have too many takeaways. I don't trust his chin. I think Ashmouz has way too much power for him. I can just see him ending up chinning him. So, and I think especially in the crowded environment of the London card, I think a fighter like Ashmouz has a higher chance of knocking out Duncan, just because I think momentum will kind of be forcing some of these guys to scrap more, and I think he is just going to end up catching them. That just sounds a little bit weird. I don't know. I guess Duncan does have a 3.5-inch reach advantage in this matchup, so maybe that helps him here, but I can just see Ashmouz with the power he has ending up to just catching Chris Duncan and putting him out. So I'm going to go Ashmouz here. Tapology has 75% for Ashmouz. I agree here. Most of it is by KO. I think that's correct also. Relatively like similar odds here, like pretty low odds and near evens. I wouldn't, like, personally, I think I'll probably put some money on this one also, maybe by finish at some point. I guess Chris Duncan, you'll probably be looking at like some of the overs on like the decision, because I don't know if he finishes, you know, Ashmouz here, but I think Ashmouz probably gets the finish in this matchup, so I'm sure the odds are good on that one. Up the card, we have Ketlen Vieira versus Pannie Kianzad. I am going to go with Ketlen Vieira, but I don't know, is it just me that this one is just really weird that it's on the early prelims? I think, I don't know, is there really that many women's MMA defenders out there? I don't see them anymore. I'm going to be completely honest. I really don't. Ketlen Vieira was fighting in Fight Night main events literally 2 fights ago, was on the co-main event against Raquel Pennington, lost that one by split decision, and is now on the early prelim. So keep in mind where women's MMA is, and when you see one of these fighters get into the main event scene, it like Fight Night main events, this is why people don't want to watch this stuff. Like it just doesn't make any sense. UFC knows what they're doing, I guess. Just don't watch the fight, I guess. But for Ketlen Vieira, I think I am just going to go with her. I think she's lost to some of the higher competition. I'm going to put it this way. I think she's beaten better competition at the higher parts of the division. Pannie Kianzad, although it's good, her last fight was a year ago. Won against Lena Landsberg by decision, lost to Raquel Pennington. They both lost to Raquel Pennington, but this was 2 years ago. She just lost to Raquel Pennington about 5 months ago by split decision. Relatively close fight, too. But lost to beat Alexis Davis, beat Sierra Eubanks, beat Beth Correia. So I'm just going to go with Vieira. 1 year off for Kianzad, I don't really like too much. She's only 31 years old, so it's not necessarily a bad thing for regular MMA, but I don't know. Anything can really happen in some of these fights. I reckon it is probably a decision, but I am going to go with Ketlen Vieira. I don't think she's horrible, but I think she just has some better wins, especially recently. I guess her win over Holly Holm, that was a split decision, which some people thought she lost, was about a year ago. So I guess you can put it that way. And she lost to Raquel Pennington by split decision. I don't know. I'm going to go with Ketlen Vieira. I'm not going to try to explain women's MMA at this point, but I am going to take her by decision in this one. Up the card, we have Bryan Barberena versus Makhmud Muradov. I am going to go with Makhmud Muradov. They're both coming off of 2 losses. Makhmud Muradov has just lost to GM3 about 2 years ago. Came back, fought Kyle Baralho. Made it a little bit tough for Baralho in that matchup. And ended up taking that one to a decision. Lost that one by decision by Bryan Barberena. 7 months ago, lost to RDA by submission. Got absolutely ragdolled in that one. And lost to Gunnar Nelson by submission also 3 months ago. And is now moving up to 185, which I do not like. I don't think that's a smart idea at all for him. Normally when you see guys move up and down the division, especially at certain parts of their career, you know it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like Tony Ferguson recently moving up to 170. I didn't really like that. And you saw what he looked like at 170. And you kind of were just happy that he didn't end up fighting Li Jingliang, who probably would have put his lights out again. So you can kind of tell some of these guys if it's like a good move up or a bad move up, like Paul Craig moving down. I don't think that's going to work out too well. Maybe it does. I don't think it will. Another example, Dan Hooker moving down to 145 against Arnold Allen. I didn't like too much either. So you can kind of tell with some of these guys in their career and how you think they're gonna be built for certain divisions, how they'll necessarily be in those divisions. So for like Bryan Barberena, I don't think moving up to 185 is gonna fix any problems, especially at 34 years of age. If you're like a Whitaker and you're super young and you're just gonna build yourself into the division, I get it. But like, I don't understand this one. I think this is a bad idea for Bryan Barberena. I can just see Muradov probably chinning him maybe. I think he has a really good shot here. I don't think Barberena is going to do too much on the feet. I guess he's going to make it competitive for a little bit. I can just see Muradov end up catching him, even though Barberena is pretty tough. I think Tapology agrees with me here. 86% for Muradov. Majority of it is by KO. I think I agree with them here. I think Muradov's just going to be way better than him. This is not a good move up to 185 for Barberena. I'm not sure what he's doing here. So I'm going with Muradov by finish. Up the card, we have Mick Parkin versus Jamal Pogues. I am going to go with, well, I'm actually kind of unsure with who I'm going to go with. Mick Parkin made his debut on the UFC Contender Series against Eduardo Neves. Won that one by submission, but it was a relatively competitive fight. It was 10 months ago, so keep that in mind. He is only 27, so my guess is he's probably improving at heavyweight. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but he did get hurt in that matchup, ended up getting taken down a couple times. Jamal Pogues, last fight was a win over Josh Parisian. I thought he looked pretty good, or at least solid for heavyweight, kind of in that unranked area. Shot in some good takedowns, kind of mixed his work up a little bit more in that matchup. I don't know. See, here's the thing. Mick is good at getting out of bad positions on the ground, but Jamal Pogues shot some really good takedowns. So, I mean, either way, they're both super young, so I think they'll both be improving. But Mick Parkin taking a year off, what will he look like coming back is what I'm more worried about. And I just don't know. He has some really good power in his hands, so maybe I might just go with Mick Parkin, honestly, because I don't mind Jamal Pogues in this one, but I also don't mind Mick Parkin. And they're both 27 years old. Power is on the side of Mick Parkin. He has the chance to improve some of his ground game a little bit more. 79 inches of reach, 2-inch reach advantage in this one. Tapology is going 67% for Parkin. I think I will go with Parkin. Maybe he does end up getting the finish in the first round here. And he's a London guy too. So now I don't know if he's exactly a London guy, but it says he's from England. So he's going to have the crowd behind him. We'll see what happens here. I am going to end up going with McParkin, though. I think he gets the finish in the first round. That's what I'm going to go with. That's what I'm going to stay on. I'm not too sure about this one, though, but I think he does end up getting the finish. I think the year off might have helped him here. I don't know if he's been injured. I'm assuming he hasn't because I haven't heard of it, but he will have a 2-inch reach advantage. I'm assuming he's going to be able to get off the ground for when Jamal Pogues goes for takedowns. I think his punches will just land harder. If not, if this one ends up going to decision by some way, maybe it's going to be a little bit closer because of the Pogues takedowns and maybe the power from Parkin, maybe swaying the damage. And he does have the crowd behind him, so maybe you'll get a little bit of a biased judging a little bit more. So I don't know. I am going to go with Parkin in this one. Tapology's taking him. 50-50 finish right there. They're saying some by submission and then some by decision. I think it will be a finish if he does end up winning this matchup. So I am going to go Parkin by finish in late first round is what I'm going to say. Maybe Pogues shoots in some really good takedowns, and I think he just ends up getting caught, and it just starts getting pretty messy there. And you can see Mick Parkin like getting on top of him and finishing him up with TKO strikes on the ground. So that's what I'm going to go with for that one. Up the card, we have Marc Diakiese versus Yoel Alvarez. I'm going to go with Alvarez in this one. I think he wins this one by first round finish. I can see Marc Diakiese. Well, here's the first thing. Joel Alvarez is absolutely massive for the division, 6'3", and he's a big dude. He's not like Jalen Turner size where he's a little bit skinnier and all that. Like, he's a stocky, and I want to say stocky, but he's a big dude. A lot of muscle on him. Marc Diakiese, a wrestler. And Joel Alvarez was able to finish off Thiago Moises on the feet by standing TKO because he was just able to use his size and just avoid some of the takedowns from him. And Thiago Moises couldn't really do too much there, and I don't see Marc Diakiese doing too much there. Yoel Alvarez in his career, I think, 16 submission wins, 11 of them in the first round, 4 of them in the second, and then 1 of them in the third. All of his wins are by finish, and then 3 wins by KO, TKO, like majority of them in the first round. So I think this ends up being a first round finish. I'm surprised the odds are so close. Maybe this fight doesn't end up happening due to like a weight miss of Alvarez in this one. But I can just see either Marc Diakiese getting hurt and shooting in for a takedown, getting caught in a guillotine, because I think I may be wrong here. I'm sorry to switch and move this one around. I think he does use a guillotine quite a bit. You saw that in the Duffy fight. I think he has a few guillotine choke wins. Yeah, like 4 guillotine choke wins on his record. So I can see him hurting Diakiese and Diakiese shooting in for a bad takedown, getting caught in a guillotine, or I can just see Diakiese just getting caught and TKO'd on the feet just because of the size of Alvarez being able to defend the takedowns and then just getting finished up on the ground, maybe by ground and pound strikes or just on the feet again. So I am going to go with Yoel Alvarez. Diakiese also losing his last fight to Michael Johnson isn't necessarily a good look either. Alvarez will have the reach advantage too. I think this is just a bad matchup for Diakiese, and I think this being a closer odds is really interesting. I wonder if the odds changed recently, but I mean, I'm probably gonna put something on Yoel Alvarez here. Yoel Alvarez, 87% picked by Tapology, 63% by submission. I like that also. I think he gets a sub win, but I think a TKO is definitely possible here. But I think Alvarez submission is more likely in this one. So moving on. Up the card, we have Danny Roberts versus Jonny Parsons. I think I am going to go with Danny Roberts here. Jonny Parsons in his Contender Series matchup against Solomon Renfro, won that one by split decision. He is pretty slick on the feet. He's pretty fast. He has some decent power in his hands and is able to move out of shots pretty well. Did get hurt in that matchup, though. And that matchup was about 2 years ago, or a year and, what was that, 2/3 ago, I guess. Danny Roberts is known to not have that great of a chin. I guess when you lose the Jack Della Maddalena, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But he doesn't have a crazy chin that I can trust to where Johnny Parsons will start to land some shots, and as the fight goes on, you don't get worried. But I think Danny Roberts will end up winning this one. He will have a 5-inch reach advantage. Johnny Parsons hasn't fought in 2 years. He is 31 years of age, or almost 32, so he could have improved a little bit more, and Danny Roberts is 36 years old. So possible upset alert, that sounds pretty cringe, but possible upset in the works here for Johnny Parsons, getting a finish on Danny Roberts. I can definitely see it. 32 going into his prime. I don't necessarily know why he has some time off here, about 2 years, so maybe he did improve a little bit, but 5-inch reach advantage for Roberts. I think he's just going to be a little bit better on the feet, and he's going to win this one by, I'm not even confident in the way he wins this one. I think this one could be a decision for sure. I think I'll say decision. I don't know if he gets the finish here. We haven't really seen Parsons in 2 years, and he was getting hurt very badly against Solomon Renfro. And Solomon Renfro actually, in retrospect, Solomon Renfro actually looks pretty decent now. So it's not necessarily a bad loss. I believe Renfro is in the PFL and is coming off a few good wins. So did lose to Adam Fugit, but I guess it's a good or bad win. Fugit looked decent against Morales. But getting off that, I think Roberts probably wins this one by decision. Tapology 65-35 in this one. I can understand why people are a little bit more skeptical with this pick, but I can't pick Parsons after a 2-year layoff and not looking that good against Renfro. I can't really trust it here. You're kind of just predicting based on what Johnny Parsons can be and what you expect Danny Roberts will be after his last fight against Jack Della Maddalena about 6 months ago. So I'm going to go with Roberts by a decision. Up the card, we have Davey Grant versus Daniel Marcos. I think I am going to go with Davey Grant here. Daniel Marcos actually looked pretty good in his fight against Simon Oliveira. I think I chose him to win. I thought he was just going to be better on the feet, which pretty much is what happened. But he's pretty technical in that fight. Looked really good on the feet. But I don't know. It was like I feel like because it was Simon Oliveira, who is decent on the ground, or at least really good on the ground, I should say. He has good grappling. Simon Oliveira is not known to be good on the feet, and I think Davey Grant has some really good power in his hands, and I think he'll kind of just keep Marcos in check. It wasn't too... Like, Marcos looked super impressive. Super impressive from what I thought he would be on the Contender Series. Contender Series, he beat Brandon Lewis. I thought Lewis was going to win that one at least by finish. He won that one by decision. But he looked technical, but it wasn't anything that could necessarily put a higher level opponent in danger. And I think Davey Grant, with the power he has, I think he's going to be able to land some shots. He is getting older, so maybe there's that fact in this one. But these are relatively even odds if you're looking at it from a betting perspective. I don't know if I would touch this one, personally, from a betting perspective, but I think Davey Grant just gets this one done. I don't know, by finish. Maybe he does end up landing some good shots in the second or third round and ends up finish. Actually, I think it probably will be a late round finish. Now that I think about it, I think he ends up getting a late round finish by TKO in like the late second or third round. I can see that one definitely happen. Just catching Daniel Marcos. Daniel Marcos just ending up just getting caught from weird angles from Davey Grant. I think the power is just going to be a little bit too much for him. And I guess after his last fight against Sun Sao, he did end up getting a really, really late submission win in a crazy, crazy fight. I don't know. I think I am just going to side with Davey Grant here. I guess Marcos will kind of just have to impress a little bit more here. He is 14-0, so he's not that for no reason, but 30 years of age, so I guess he can still impress and improve a little bit more. But I feel like Grant's going to get this one done. A late round finish. He is in the UK for this matchup, so he's going to have the crowd behind him. It's going to be a little bit more of a scrappier fight. I'm going to side with the power here. It is pretty even on Tapology here, 59-41 in this one, about half, 50-50 on finish or decision for Grant. I like the finish part here, but honestly, from a betting perspective, I'm not touching this. But I am going to go Grant by finish in like the second or third round. So I don't necessarily know what the odds are for like the over-under on the rounds here, but maybe that's something to look at. Who knows? Moving on. Up the card, we have Lerone Murphy versus Joshua Kaliba. I am going to go with Lerone Murphy. I think he's good. His last fight, he probably arguably could have, or not arguably, I think he probably should have lost against Gabriel Santos. He won that one by split decision, so it was a pretty close fight. Beat Makhmud Mirkani by a knee, by KO. Beat Douglas Silva de Andrade by decision. Joshua Kleebow coming off a weird win against Milska Bagdasarian. People rate that one quite a bit. When I watched it a couple of times, I don't know if he ended up hurting Milsic before hopping on his back and getting the rear naked choke, or if Bagdasarian just ended up like slipping and he's able to get the back and finish him. But I mean, I don't rate that win crazy high. Maybe I'm just hating or something, but I don't rate it too high. I think Lerone Murphy's pretty good, if I could speak, but I think he just ends up winning this matchup probably by decision. I want to say, yeah, 80-20 for Tapology here. Most of them have it by decision. I think Lerone Murphy's actually pretty good. Had a weird matchup against Gabriel Santos. The odds are relatively close here, which is pretty interesting. Joshua Kleebow, I guess, is kind of coming up a little bit more after losing to Jalen Turner, but had a split draw with Charles Jourdan. Then fought Shyalan Nordenbike, which is a pretty good win to have, a decision win. Beat Sungwoo Choi by split decision and ended up beating Milson Badasarian by the finish. But I think Lerone Murphy's just a different level, different step up in competition. I think he ends up winning this one by decision. So I am going to go with Lerone Murphy. 32 years of age, kind of in that prime area. I guess Joshua Kleebow's kind of entering it a little bit more here, but I think I trust Lerone Murphy a little bit more in this matchup. Of the card, we have Jai Herbert versus Fares Ziam. I am going to go with Fares Ziam in this one. I don't trust Jai Herbert. I think Jai Herbert's a really, really good fighter. I think he is. And my only real worry is that he doesn't really have a chin. And I guess he did look really good against Ilia Topuria before getting put out cold, like brutally put out cold. Beat Kamal Worthy by KO. Beat Cal Nelson by decision, and then drew with Ludovic Klein. So take that with what you will. He did look really good early on against Ilia Topuria. You can kind of have that. I think he's super talented, but his chin is a really, really big problem. Fares Ziam, last fight was about a year ago, only 26 years old. So I think he's still going to be improving. His weird loss on his record, at least at this point, maybe could have aged a little bit not so well as Terrence McKinney, but people still kind of rate Terrence McKinney a little bit higher. I think there's definitely a danger factor with Terrence McKinney that you just can't ignore in some of the picks, which is why I went with him in his last fight. But beat Luigi Benjamini, who I didn't think was horrible. I think he's actually decent. I won't say decent, a decent and an unranked level. Won that one by, well, I guess he lost to Paddy Pimblett, so who knows. But he won that one by majority decision. Beat Jamie Malarkey by decision, which is a good one to have, and then lost to Don Madge by decision. But I think he's going to be improving. He's a big guy. He's 6'1". I guess they're both 6'1". But I think, what is this, a 9-year age gap? I think the UFC will probably put up a stat before this fight saying, like, the guys who are the younger version. I think I mentioned this in my other video also. Guys that are like 9 years younger will end up winning or whatever, like 60 or 70% of the time when there's like a 9-year age gap or something. So I am going to go with Fares Ziam. I think he's just going to land a really good shot on him. Has some decent power in his hands. He's a big dude. I guess they're both big dudes. I wasn't expecting him to be 6'1", actually. I didn't think Jai Herbert was that big, but Jai Herbert just doesn't have a chin that I can trust. And I think he is good, but I think eventually Fares Ziam will land a good punch on him. He does train out of Kill Cliff too, so he's training with some killers at a very, very young age. Pretty close odds here too. I really like Fares Ziam in this matchup. People are taking Herbert by decision in this one. I don't know if I like that one. I really don't like that pick. 67% for Tapology. I guess I'm kind of getting an under. Maybe I am getting an underdog, but they're pretty evens. Fares Ziam 33% out of Tapology. I think I just trust Fares Ziam a little bit more. I think he's improving. Last fought like a year ago. Although he does have some iffy wins and losses, I think he can just end up catching Jai Herbert, although Jai Herbert is pretty good. I think he just ends up catching him. Jai Herbert, 35 years old, too. 2-inch reach advantage. I still think Ziam has a little bit of an edge over him. I don't know what other people are taking for this matchup, so I'm not too sure on that end, but I don't know. I'm actually kind of surprised Tapology 67-33 on that one. I thought for sure people were going to pick Fares Ziam, but I am going with Fares Ziam by finish, probably in like the second or third. I won't say third round. I think probably the second round. Probably catches Jai Herbert. If not, maybe could go to a decision, and maybe some of the drops from Ziam will kind of add up. Maybe just holds top position over Jai Herbert, because I think Ilia Topuria held top position over Jai Herbert despite being so much smaller than him. Although Topuria is a very good wrestler and grappler, I think Fares Ziam can end up getting this one done. If he ends up knocking him down and not being able to finish and just lay on top of him and do some good work on their ground, maybe you can do that and win it by like a decision. but I am going to go for Ziam by finish. Up the card, we have Andre Muniz versus Paul Craig. I am going to go with Andre Muniz. I like him in this matchup. I don't like Paul Craig moving down to middleweight here. I don't think it's a really good move. Maybe it does fit him pretty well, but I think this is a very interesting matchup from fans because they're both really, really good on the ground. They're both good jiu-jitsu guys. Weirdly enough, Andre Muniz got submitted in his last matchup by Brendan Allen. And weirdly enough, just in that matchup, I think it did get moved to main event because I don't remember what fight exactly fell off of it. But Andre Muniz looked better on the feet against Brendan Allen, who's supposed to look good on the feet. And then Brendan Allen ended up submitting Andre Muniz, who's supposed to be better on the ground. It was a very weird fight. But he ended up losing that one by submission. A lot of people had pretty high hopes for him. Ended up winning against Uriah Hall by decision. Beat Eric Anders by submission. Beat Jacare Souza by armbar. So he's a very, very good submission guy. Looked really good on the feet in his last matchup, or at least better on the feet against Brendan Allen. Paul Craig lost his last matchup against Johnny Walker. Went in for like a single leg and then just got absolutely battered out. Lost to Volkan Ozdemir by decision. Weird fight. Looking at Paul Craig, you're thinking of like some kind of savage, like he's from Scotland, some kind of like Scottish savage. He's gonna come at you and throw some hands and knock you out. No, this dude is a very weird fighter. He literally will grab you and try to pull you into his guard. He's your classic jiu-jitsu guy that you expect to see them fight as. So I think Andre Muniz is just going to be a little bit better on the feet here, and I don't mind a submission win for Muniz here. I don't know exactly what Craig will look like at 185. Will he be depleted? What will he look like? Because he's already getting chinned at 205, so maybe the weight cut might not be bad. Maybe it will be. I don't know. We still don't know necessarily that way, but Andre Muniz I think will look way better on the feet, and I think if he doesn't win this one by finish, I think it'll probably be by decision. I can just see him outstriking him, and I don't see him getting caught in bad stuff on the ground. I think Muniz he was like a little bit tired at the end of that Brendan Allen fight and ended up getting submitted there. But I don't know. I can just see Muniz either hurting him and ending up going for a submission, or just eventually getting the submission later on in that fight. So I am going to take Muniz by submission. I don't know if that's a weird one or not, but like I can see it submission or decision. I don't know if I necessarily see a finish by KO. They're 33 years of age, 35 years of age for Paul Craig. 2-inch reach advantage for Andre Muniz here. 36% are taking Paul Craig. Wow. Topology is definitely an interesting one. I wonder why people are down on Muniz at least at this point. I think Muniz will definitely be better on the feet. I don't understand why people are taking Paul Craig here. I guess there is a certain level of threat, maybe. But I am going to take Muniz here. 41% by decision, 33% by submission. My bad there. Yeah, I just see submission for Muniz after he hurts Paul Craig early in that first round, maybe midway through, and ends up like taking the back and finishing him there. Or you can just see him winning this one, kind of making it a little bit more basic on the feet, not doing anything stupid on the ground with Paul Craig, and just outpointing him to a decision. So I'm going to go with Muniz here. I don't know. I'm not going to commit to anything there. I think submission or decision will probably be the way to go there. Up the card, we have Nathaniel Wood versus Andre Fili. I think I am going to go with Nathaniel Wood here. I think Nathaniel Wood's pretty underrated, honestly. His last two fights looked really good against Charles Jourdain. Won that one by decision. Beat Charles Rosa. Looked good in that one. Lost to Casey Kenny about 3 years ago. He's only 29 years of age, almost 30, so he's decently young, entering that prime area of his career. Maybe possible unranked territory for, not unranked, top 15 territory for Nathaniel Wood at some point in the future. But he's taking on Andre Fili, who won his last fight against Bill Algier, which is a pretty interesting fight in which I guess I could get into a different tangent about this fight, but I think there's a way, not a way, but I think there's, I don't even know. I think looking at that fight, I thought for sure that Bill Algier won, but I guess according to the criteria, if you have someone's back, you automatically win. But personally, I think if you have someone's back and you're not doing anything, and you're literally, he was getting battered, like got rid of the choke, ended up just not choking anymore, and just like choking, ended up not going for the submission anymore and just getting beat up on his back. So I think that one should have gone to Bill Algier in my brain, but I guess he won that fight just holding his back and because it was a dominant position. But I think looking at that fight, I think the rules kind of need to change a little bit more. You can kind of say the same thing with Volkanovski and Makhachev in that fourth round. I'm sure there's other fights where you can go off of, but those are the two prominent ones that I think immediately in my head. But Andre Fili won against Bill Algier. Nonetheless, it was a pretty close fight anyways. Lost to Joe Anderson Brito by KO. His fight against Daniel Pineda ended because of an accidental eye poke, lost to Bryce Mitchell, beat Charles Jourdain by split decision. I think Nathaniel Wood basically just chews up his leg in this matchup. I think he does really good on the feet. Starts at the legs. I think Andre Fili isn't necessarily like a thick, stocky guy, and I think Nathaniel Wood with his insane leg kicks will just take that out of it. I think he's going to be moving around, limping around pretty badly. Maybe we'll eventually see a TKO for Nathaniel Wood later on in this fight if Fili just can't walk anymore and just gets hurt too much on the feet. And he gets the finish. 33 years of age, has taken a little bit of damage in his last couple of fights, so we'll see what Fili's going to look like in this one. He is traveling to a different country, a different continent, so maybe he gets a little bit of jet lag, gets hurt by his legs, and then just gets caught on the feet and finished off, maybe. But I think Nathaniel Wood just will start at the legs and will work his way up and hurt Andre Fili pretty badly. If not, I think he gets a decision. Maybe he ends up getting the finish later on, but I think decision is probably the best bet here. 90% to 10% for Nathaniel Wood and Andre Fili. 82% for decision for Tapology. I think I am going to go with Nathaniel Wood in this matchup. I think he beats Andre Fili for sure. I'm pretty decently confident that he will, barring anything happening in the matchup. He's a -200 favorite. Entering somewhat of his prime, I think Nathaniel Wood will chew up the legs of Andre Fili and win this one by a decision. Up the card, we have Molly McCann versus Julia Stoliarenko. I'm going to go with Molly McCann. I don't think Julia Stoliarenko is any good. I think she's, 1-5, 1-6 in the UFC. Let's see. Tapology is real nice now. 1-5 in the UFC, and somehow in there still. Her last fight, she lost to Chelsea Chandler by KO. Beat Jessica Rose Clark by an armbar, which isn't saying much. Alexis Davis lost that one by decision. Lost to Julia Avila by submission. Lost to Yana Santos by decision. So take that with what you will. Will she even make the weight here is, I guess, a big question. I think her last fight against Chelsea Chandler, like we just saw Chelsea Chandler fight at 145 against Norma Dumont. This fight was at 140 catch weight. Now she's fighting at 125. So we'll see if she makes the weight here. But Molly McCann, last fight, she got dominated by Erin Blanchfield. Erin Blanchfield looked crazy in that fight. Just showed the different levels of fighting in that women's division. He kind of showed she's a real deal, just dominating her. Didn't succumb to a little bit of the hype that Molly McCann had. Beat Hannah Goldie by KO. Beat Luana Carolina by a crazy spinning back elbow last time she was in London. So maybe she landed something pretty cool here. And I think she does end up getting the finish here against Julia Stoliarenko. And that's what I have. 7 inch reach advantage for Stoliarenko, but she's just not good on the feet. -350 favorite for McCann, 33 years of age. I think she ends up getting the finish. There's nothing that makes me worried too much, but it is women's MMA at the end of the day, so we'll see what happens. A lot of people are taking McCann by KO. I think that's probably the case here. Co-main event in London, England. I think she gets the finish. She'll have the crowd behind her for sure. I'm going to go with Molly McCann. Up the card, we have Tom Aspinall versus Marcin Tybura. I did see a picture today. I'm just going to say this. I tried to, just so you know, in case you're wondering why this video came out a little bit later. Maybe you don't care, so just skip like 20 seconds. But this video came out a little bit later. I couldn't figure out the first one. I had some problems, but Marcin Tybura is actually like kind of slimmed down a little bit more, which is kind of interesting heading into this one. So I don't know. I guess maybe on the feet it might get a little bit more interesting, but Tom Aspinall, if you checked out some of his progress since his ACL injury like about a year ago against Curtis Blades, he's shredded now. And if you saw Tom Aspinall before, he looked like he wasn't like skinny, he wasn't fat. It was just like he had muscle, but he wasn't ripped. But now he's ripped. He's already pretty fast. He's already pretty strong, but he's definitely toned in. Gained a little bit more muscle, it seems like. So he's going to be cutting a little bit more weight here. 251 already. Now I'm guessing he's going to be cutting a little bit more here. And knowing that Marcin Tybura made weight at 253 in his last fight and looks like he slimmed down, he's probably going to be the lighter guy here. And I don't see him out wrestling Tom Aspinall. I think Tom Aspinall is just going to be too fast for him. He's going to be way better on the feet. I think he's going to showcase quite a bit. Maybe Marcin Tybura can kind of like capitalize on a mistake that Tom Aspinall might make in this one. But I think Tom Aspinall is going to look really good in this one. Number 5 fighting number 12. I guess that's a different question to have. But I don't know. I don't mind this for Tom Aspinall coming back. This is kind of a weirder card for Tom Aspinall after he beats Marcin Tybura, because I think he for sure beats Marcin Tybura, barring anything happening in this matchup. We'll knock on wood for that one. Only 30 years of age also. Was the same reach. Not a good look. Not a good look for Marcin Tybura on this one. But for Tom Aspinall after this matchup, I don't mind them making Tom Aspinall versus Sergey Pavlovich for the title, for the heavyweight title. Of course, after Miocic and John Jones are done with their business, you're going to need a title match to make. And maybe that's what the Cyril Gane versus Sergey Spivak, even though I think he probably needs another matchup to win to even get a chance at a title shot, because he's probably had way too many. I think he's had like, well, he had one against Francis Ngannou and had one against John Jones, lost both of them, won one fight in between. You can't really give him a third title shot, especially after looking at what his wrestling looked like. So I guess Spivak, you kind of learn a little bit more. If maybe he starches them and gets up from it, he'll look a lot better. I don't know. But barring, I guess, Cyril Gane not getting another title shot, you'll probably be looking at Almeida Blades, but Blades just got KO'd by Sergey Pavlovich. So maybe if Almeida ends up winning against Curtis Blades and just dominates him, he'll get the title shot. But I think Tom Aspinall is not a bad bet here to get the next title shot against Sergey Pavlovich. I would love that fight. I think I would probably edge it to, I guess, becoming more of a Sergey Pavlovich, Tom Aspinall prediction here. But I think Tom Aspinall would probably beat Sergey Pavlovich. And I'm a really big Sergey Pavlovich fan. But I think Tom Aspinall is just going to be a little bit more technical. You saw Sergey Pavlovich, I don't want to say struggle, but he got pretty even against Curtis Blades early on in that fight. And although Sergey Pavlovich has some really, really good range, I think he was eventually able to defend the takedown after he kind of just hit up Curtis Blades a little bit more, and it became a little bit easier for him. Aspinall is really going to put a pace on him. I think, not necessarily saying that Pavlovich can't keep up a pace, but I think he's going to mix it up and make it really tough for Pavlovich in that matchup. So I can see Aspinall becoming a potential champ. I guess we don't really know what the chin of Aspinall really looks like. So maybe he gets caught and just gets put out cold, and that would be really cool to have Sergey Pavlovich as a champ. That would be insane, which I would really want. I wouldn't mind either one of these guys becoming champ. But Aspinall really fast on the feet, good power in his hands, good on the ground. That's why I think he's going to be a really big threat for this entire division. I can see him probably beating a lot of these guys, top 5, top 10. I don't know, man. I'm going to go with Tom Aspinall, maybe Tom Aspinall to win the championship, because I think there's no clear guys after that. This matchup, I think, is going to be a little bit easier for him. I'm not seeing anything too tough for him. Marcin Tybura against Blagoy Ivanov. When I made that pick, I was pretty confident in watching the fight. I was like, you should really be doing more against a guy like Blagoy Ivanov, especially if you're going to be fighting Tom Aspinall. But he's 37 years of age, almost 38. Same reach here. Tom Aspinall is going to be, what, 7 or 8 years younger than him. I'm pretty confident in this pick. Probably by finish, probably first round finish. Aspinall 96% on Tapology, 4%. What the hell are you guys doing? And maybe they'll just switch last second or something, and maybe it turns into 1%. But what the hell's happening with this pick? Why is there 4%? I don't know. Maybe they're guessing that Aspinall gets injured and they just want to be one of those people on the side. I don't know. I don't get it. Let them do what they want. But Tom Aspinall by KO, I like it in this one. I think he ends up finishing Marcin Tybura on the feet relatively early. I think he's just going to be too fast for him. I think he's going to show off some power. I think he's going to KO Marcin Tybura. I think he's really going to show that off, and people are going to be like, whoa, watch out for Aspinall. That's what we're going to take away from this one. I think he's going to KO Marcin Tybura, really impress a lot of people. And I think he ends up winning. That's what we have for this weekend. Next weekend, I think is going to be pretty good also. So this card is a little rougher. Hopefully this card stays pretty clean. Maybe we could lose a couple women's fights. But outside of that, this should be a pretty fun card. I think London will definitely make this card 100%. I think, honestly, UFC has been on a little bit of a streak with some really good cards. We had the UFC 290 card. Even Emmett and Tybura was actually pretty good. UFC 290 was like the card we really needed this year. We hadn't really had a card that stood out from the rest. And last week's card was actually pretty solid. We got to finish in a women's MMA main event. So I guess you can kind of get a W of a card after that. So, but it was actually a solid card outside of that. Really good finishes, really good main card. This one I think is going to be really good in London. Next week will be pretty good as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think about this full card prediction video. Let me know what you guys think about this matchup, Tom Aspinall versus Marcin Tybura. Who do you guys have winning in the comments below? And I'll see you guys next time.